Welcome to Built, Trusted, Chosen, the podcast for leaders and marketers in trades and construction, hosted by Wes Towers from Uplift 360.
G'day, hi there, Lance Cayko. It's fantastic to have you on the show today. I've been looking forward to this call, and just to introduce yourself potentially to the audience, so they know who you are, and we'll unpack it as we progress. But tell people what you're up to and who you are.
Yeah, sure. My name is Lance, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, architect, builder, real estate developer, and also a fellow podcaster. We have a show called Inside the Firm Podcast, where we bring everybody in deep dive into our firm. So I think I'm here to talk about trades and all of the good stuff that we do.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a crazy time to be alive for trades around the world. Everything's topsy-turvy. Things are frightening. Things are exciting. It's certainly an interesting time in Australia, as it is for you, no doubt. How do you see all that playing out?
Well, the biggest thing so I was just telling one of my developer that we're working with and we partner with here and there. It would be nice if there just wasn't some chaos for a while. So I don't care who gets into office in the US next, as long as it's just a little bit more calm. I think we're just looking for some calm and less of a bull in a china shop, if you catch my drift for that. The thing you can't get away from these days is all the talk about AI. But I am convinced that's one of the reasons why more folks, especially like architects, should be becoming builders, and that the blue collar trades are probably going to be the safest so far from
I think so.
Getting a lot of work taken away from them. I think it's actually pretty empowering for blue collar folks.
Yeah, it feels like for many years we were pushing people into universities as if that was the best career path and the most profitable and all that kind of stuff. But certainly things are flipped in that regard. I think that the need and the safety of doing something physical with your hands is going to be so beneficial. It already is, but it seems a way off that a robot will be swinging a hammer, so to speak. Just to safeguard yourself. AI will influence every business, of course, but it's about positioning ourselves to make the most of the opportunities, but also to position ourselves for what might change as well. In your world, what's changed in that, from an AI perspective? Have you introduced anything, or what are you looking at?
Well, yeah, I mean, from a visualization standpoint, it has been a game changer. On our YouTube channel, we just put up a 1-minute short that was derived from a bunch of still images that we took of this amazing house we just finished in Boulder, and multi-million-dollar, like beautiful mid-century, just a gem of a piece of architecture. And there was another firm out in a builder in Aspen. I caught my eye on LinkedIn last week, and they posted this beautiful 8-second still. Well, it was taken from a still, so it was a picture of this house in this amazing landscape in the middle of the Roaring Fork Valley, and it showed a time lapse of like going from like daylight to nighttime, and I fed it through my cameraman, our editor, he fed it through ChatGPT, and he's like, how did they make this? And it said, oh, this is AI generated for sure. And then what I said is I use Grok a lot too. I fed Grok the post, and I said, write me a prompt that would allow me to turn our stills into this. And it's still following the same formula. So what we do is we've tried to harness it in such a way that where we do human first, then AI, and then human again, whether it's writing. And so for some examples of like writing is, if you just give it a command and say, write a book, and then you're done, it's a horrible book. So what we've done is, like, for some of our project descriptions, or specifically that when we go for awards for things, is I will actually sit down and interview my project architects or principal architects, whoever did the house, and we capture their voice and what they're saying about the process, the house or the building or whatever. Then I transcribe that into a piece of text, a transcript. And then I feed that into AI before we start writing the project description. And then we have somebody else look at it in the end and humanize the whole thing. Those are the two main things that we're seeing it used for. And it does a lot of research for us too, which is pretty phenomenal. It's a
Yeah.
time saver in that, but we are not seeing it draw buildings yet, like
Yeah.
execute them. It does some very quick and down and dirty stuff, but really, I don't think it's replacing architects anytime soon. I think it'll make architects more powerful for what they can do. And then on the building side of things, I just haven't seen it do much yet. I've seen some of our vendors try to take our plans and use a piece of software with AI behind it to do takeoffs, and the takeoffs are even really bad. So it's still
Yeah.
kind of bleeding edge stuff, but that's where we're
Yeah.
seeing the horizon pop up.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's all going, and I suppose the challenge with architects over the journey has been you can draw the plans and can perceive what it might look like, but the end client potentially hasn't got that capability, so you need to do lots of renders and so on, and with the AI piece to take care of that side of things. I mean, there was initially outsourcing this kind of stuff to get the renders and so on done offshore at a cheaper rate, but it's getting to the point where you can just do it fairly quickly and easily. So, people can actually feel as though they're in a building before it's really there. So that's super exciting. I mean, I got some friends who built a custom built home down in Tasmania fairly recently, and it was pushing the boundaries in a whole lot of ways. So when you're deviating away from the norm, it's really hard for people to understand what it might look and feel like once you're actually in the building. So, the tech is pretty powerful for that side of things to visualize what things might look like in the end. I think
Yeah.
it's
We used to wait
yeah,
for days, and I'm not joking, in grad school. It's
yeah,
2008, that'll date me. Days to get one still image, a photorealistic rendering of a building, and now we're waiting seconds. So it
it's
is speeding
crazy.
things up. It's totally crazy. So like all those, the one profession I think as a part of the architecture, engineering, and construction community that is being replaced pretty quickly is the visualization side of things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's a really tough pitch at this point for me to farm anything out. We would have to be so busy that it just made somehow it makes financial sense for us to still farm things out. At this point, it really doesn't. I mean, it's pretty powerful.
yeah. I agree. And the you touched on something else interesting, which I really feel as though is an important aspect of how you go about applying AI and technology into your business. As no matter what it is in the trades, designing is to where you can speak to the AI or to capture your actual voice, because you just cover so much nuance in that. When you rely upon a tool and type, you won't be as verbose, and you won't mention as many things. So, and these are large language models. They want lots of language to understand and interpret and distill down into something meaningful. So the way, yeah, I think that's the biggest shift in people's minds, to think about their their tech, their computers, their iPhones, their phones, to be able to speak to it and for it to understand what that means and to interpret it into a meaningful way. I think that's a really cool mindset shift that we can apply. The Yeah, so when you do that, so you get the people who design to speak through. What types of things would they cover? Uh, you mentioned.
Well, a lot of them are like where I'm literally taking, um, let's say a design competition, or not a design competition, a design award brief where they're asking you about specific things about a project, and I'm just
Yeah,
literally I'll do a Zoom, or I'll bring people down because we have a show too, and I'll record them as if we are recording a show. It's a private thing, so they
yeah,
feel comfortable and all of that. But I'm just asking them those kind of questions, and it's kind of a beautiful thing. I think, sure, you could have done that before with maybe we're typing it out and then
yeah,
deciphering it. It's really good at organizing stuff. I'll give it that all day
yeah,
long. It's very
yeah,
good at organizing it, but it really needs that human part of it. Otherwise, it's pretty stupid. I gotta say, like,
yeah,
and it hallucinates. There was one still that I took in that series we were doing where we did all the time lapses. It took 12 attempts for it to not put in furniture. And I had to tell it in
right,
all caps finally at the end, you are not to put in furniture at all, do not do this, and then it finally listened. So it's an interesting learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah, it reverts back to what it thinks is best oftentimes, and that's not what you're asking for. So, we're all working through these challenges, but even for any business, particularly, with the trades, construction listeners, where you can systemize potentially doing proposals if you're working on, say, larger projects to get the scope of works. You can get all that through a call. If you record it, then you've got the transcript and the text, and you can feed that into your systems to create proposals, and
Hmm.
you can put in all your previous proposals so it can learn what roughly you do, and then overlay that with the conversation you've had with a real person, and then it'll pull it all together in matter of seconds. And particularly if you're going for large tenders, I mean, those documents are beasts of things sometimes to cover everything off. You might be there for days figuring it
It
all out, make sure
yeah.
everything's right. This will
This
get
is
it
a this is a
first
really
draft.
great point you're bringing up, Wes. 100%. It has revolutionized the way we respond to public RFPs.
Yeah,
Like you said, and it was so funny. I'm in a training course right now to try to get into the Denver airport and do some work there. And so
yeah,
I'm listening to everybody else complain about these RFPs, and I thought I was sometimes you feel like you're taking crazy pills because you don't know what everybody else is also reacting to certain things about. Am I the only
yeah,
one? Is there other people? Sure enough, the other people were like, the RFPs are so confusing. But AI, if you feed it into AI, it really helps you do a cross check of like, because they'll contradict themselves throughout the RFP.
yeah,
Include this, don't include this, but then do include this. And then we've even used it to like potentially score us. And it's helped
yeah,
immensely in our ability to meet and at least for the RFP part of it and see if we're close to what they're looking for that. And then on the private sector side, we do. I'm so glad you brought that up. We're feeding our the preliminary like idea about the project into it, and
mm,
then having it cross check of like, are we close to industry standards? Are we way off? Should we be charging more? Should we be charging less? And then we're
yeah,
making a final human judgment call. It does some cross checks on grammar, spelling. Are we repeating ourselves? Are we including something? Are we not? I think it is, especially for sole proprietors. It's like, oh, you have a business partner in your pocket now. That's awesome, and you can
yeah,
train it to be that person, and you can even give it some prompts that are like what I've noticed is you really have to prompt it with you have to tell it what it is. You have to say, for example, I'll tell it when it's doing some copywriting for us on our website. You are a professional copywriter. You use the writing style of this person, and this person from the web, or if it's for an award, look at the past winners, why analyze why you thought why they won, who are the new judges, how should we speak to them. It is a game changer from that perspective.
yeah. And you touch on something brilliant. The idea of maybe a solo operator or a very small team can all of a sudden go for bigger projects because they've got, where the resources were once limited, you couldn't invest, days to get this thing put together, even to read it and understand it and figure out if you can even potentially go for it. You can now quickly assess, yes, this is in my wheelhouse, and yes, we can pull something together and compete against the big players. I think there's pros and cons with that, of course, because everyone else has got the same tools. So it's just going to raise the stakes and raise the bar. But for now, if you can get in early, maybe your competitors aren't quite doing it to that level just yet. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just raising your eyes a little bit and expectations and going for slightly bigger projects where once you might not have had the capacity to do so. I think that'd be a smart play. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right that it's like every we've always been the type of folks that try to be right between bleeding and cutting edge, and I that's because
Yeah,
then and so it's, what, bleeding edge is a little dangerous. Cutting edge is like the software and the technology has proven itself. It's sort of coming out of the beta stage, and that's where I feel a little bit more comfortable about it. So we're trying to push it to those kind of limits. And like back to
yeah,
that reel we put together just for Instagram and social media just this week
mm,
is when I showed it to our staff and a couple other colleagues, their reaction was, "This is a level up," and I'm like, "Perfect.
yeah,
That's exactly what I want to hear. Is that okay? That was a level up. I'm sure we'll have copycats." And then the
Yes.
challenge, it's like the challenge, that's okay. And then the challenge is to just try to stay leveling up. It never really stops. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening to this maybe don't want to hear that, but that's your life. Like that is you get
Yeah.
this beautiful freedom. You can take off Wednesday and go fishing or whatever. Where all your employees are still working, making money and everything. But your
Yep.
challenge is then you kind of maybe while you're fishing or hiking like me, like you never stop thinking about business ideas or how to push or take the piece of
Yeah.
software and tech and push it further.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me when I first started in our industry in the we do websites and digital marketing, all that kind of stuff. So the first company I worked in, a marketing company, we only had one computer connected to email, and not everyone expected. I feel like such an old old guy when I say that, but the expectation wasn't immediacy. So people didn't expect you to respond to an email right away just because it was still relatively new. So people were still thinking in the old way of getting responses to things in days, not moments. But then as the tools enabled it, people started to expect responses to things right away. So, these days you get an email and sometimes people will call in a matter of a couple of hours and say, "Hey, did you get my email?" So I think that'll be the way in which AI accelerates everything. So it's just going to throw up new challenges and expectations, and things are going to get more and more sophisticated. So we have to remain on the cutting edge of these things, and not otherwise we'll be left behind. As simple as that. Um,
Yeah, and I think it makes the human experience even more important too. So I'm getting you
yeah,
talk about emails. I get emails and I go, that was written by AI. You responded too quickly. Like I can tell you're just not copacetic to
yeah,
paying attention. Like so we've also had this. So this is the negative side of all of it. Is like the double edged sword. Is like all right, well, we talked about us, the practitioners and professionals, feeding the proposals into AI and getting feedback. Well, then the clients we found are doing it too, and
yeah,
they'll just copy and paste the response back, and I'm like, hey. I know you had AI analyze this. That's okay, but at the same time, you should have maybe. I don't say this, but I'm thinking it, and we have to be delicate about how we respond. It's like,
yeah,
the AI response will throw out all this stuff that you don't need, that the clients think you need now because AI told it. And that's been actually the dangerous part of it is
yeah,
while it's lifting everybody up and empowering them with a different set of knowledge and way to search, GEO is what they're calling it,
yeah,
generative. Um, it's also been really challenging because then the owners will get bad information and will go, well, that's just wrong information. I'm sorry. So I hope people
yeah.
become more conscious about its positives and minuses.
Yeah, the AI slop, as we say, and incorrect things.
Yeah.
It's
Go to Twitter.
it's
Go to Twitter. You see it all day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's madness out there, and it's changing businesses as well. So even those in the trades, I mean, if you're on the tools, it'll feel less so, but in your office, things will change significantly. And as you say, just simple things like responding to emails. Um, it can be great. Sometimes we'll get emails that are like a bit of a brain dump, and even similar to the tenders that you've got to put forward, there things can be conflicting. So it's really great at collating those into something of a logical sequence of thoughts, so you can kind of figure out what is actually the need. So I think that's the way we can all improve our business systems and processes, get stuff done faster, more efficiently, effectively. Um, what else are you seeing? How are your team going with everything? Have roles changed at all, or what's going on?
Oh yeah, great question. Yeah, we went through a really interesting growth period in the past 5 years, and then a anti-growth period recently, which
Yeah,
I'm really happy about. It's kind of like a design. I've really honed this in the last maybe 10 years, just vocally. Like I didn't really understand. I didn't have the mindset or tool set or even vocabulary, I think, to put it into words. And that is like sometimes we got to break the design to realize that what we
yeah,
had before was good or better,
right.
right? Where you're just like, so you test a model, you test something out and you go, well, let's just try this idea. Like I have the idea and I think it's worth exploring. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And then you go through the motion and you go, oh yeah, all right, we broke it. It was better before. Let's revert back and go there. So it's the same thing with businesses. Growing up, I always wanted to. I've been a builder essentially for 30 years. Started when I was 13. I'm 43. And my mentor, the original general contractor that hired me and kind of set me forth on this path, he had his own construction crew in-house. He had carpenters and all
Yeah.
of that. And I just, without knowing even what vertical integration was, I thought, oh yeah, that's what I want one day too. I should that way I can control the labor more. They'll show up
Yeah.
on time. They're my employees. It's way different it's a little bit more out of your control if it's a subcontractor with their own company. So we grew to 15 people a couple years ago. And
Mm.
I realized, we started looking at our growth for sake of just people and more people in seats is not the kind of growth that is always good for you. Yes, your revenue might go up overall, but your overall gross revenue, but your net revenue, your profit is sometimes it doesn't work that way. And it didn't
Yeah.
work for us. I was looking at it for like 2 years in a row going, we have more butts in the seats now than ever, but it's like, why is the profit margin so low? Is there bottlenecks involved? So we actually
Mm.
ended up most of the construction crew ended up sort of like they quit themselves because they
Yeah.
just weren't copacetic to what we were trying to do. It was a lot. It got a little overly emotional, and then we ended up even firing our construction superintendent. And in their place, what we did is we replaced them with 2 interior designers, Sarah and
Right.
Elena.
Yeah.
And they have such a better mindset and level of professionalism and to deal with complex problems that come up in the field. That's been our big shift. So now it's
Yeah.
me and my business partner being the GCs and the oversight. And then we add in, and it's just helped with our vertical integration and creating a more sustainable set of companies to where we haven't had layoffs in 17 years. I'm really proud of that. Is that we would have had one last year, but instead, with that shift, our project architects were going out in the field and doing a lot more construction administration, billing. We were billing them. They were billing the construction company. We had a lot more revenue in the construction company, not so much in the architecture field last year. It was pretty choppy. And then the
Mm.
interior designers are doing the same. And when we got down to the final KPIs at the end of the year, the difference, we did a test of like, well, what if our construction company didn't exist? And
Right.
it ended up being our biggest client, our own company, right? Because we were doing all of that construction administration. We would have had to lay somebody off. So that
Yeah.
has been a huge eye opener for us. And then this is the last thing about this is I didn't really think I thought let's just keep growing. Yep, let's get to like 3 offices of 10 people, have 30 people. And there's these 2 engineering companies that we've worked with for a while. Still work with them. They're great. But one of them started their firm just at the same time me and Alex did 16, 17 years ago. 2 people, and they broke off from big firms, and everybody in the Denver metro flocked to them right away because they were on time, rapid, enthusiastic, like a fresh of breath air. And then
Yeah.
since everybody flocked to them, they exploded past 12 people. And as soon as they hit 12 and went past that, they went from a class A customer service firm down to class B. And then an engineering firm, and a civil engineering firm did the same thing. I'm convinced now, so is Alex. We tell this to people all the time, just like I am today. It's like we're comfortable capping at 12. Like I know
Yeah.
what the kind of money we can make at 12. That's enough. There is like a limit. There's plenty of studies that have shown like after a certain amount of money that you make, then the happiness actually doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
It gets more stressful and all of that. And then at the same time, we can provide the highest level of customer service possible. That really is at the forefront of what we try to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. There's so much to unpack in that. So the first thing, more people doesn't mean better business. In fact, with every person, there's more potential for, we've all got issues and things that pop up, and, you know, we have lives and things, health and relationships and a whole bunch of stuff. And all these human issues become part of, challenges within the business. So the more people, the more potential challenges you've got. But an interesting thing too. So you brought the interior design people on board, and you mentioned they were better at problem solving. Do you think it was only better at problem solving, or potentially was it better at communicating, that human piece where you can communicate that, resolutions and, things can get heated sometimes, but a great human, relational person can do a far better job of getting an outcome.
That really is what it was. Yeah, it came down to the
Yeah.
human touch again, and them. It's they're more open to things too, for sure. They
Yeah.
understand as designers, first and
Yes.
foremost, that like they're excited about problems.
Yeah.
The superintendent we had formerly, the foreman, the carpenters, problems were like a life sentence for them. I mean, it was like a death sentence. They just wanted to quit. It was ridiculous. But
Yeah.
the interior, so we just finished a very extensive remodel in the foothills of Boulder. Beautiful inside of a home. We gutted, we remodeled. It's just a stunning project. And it was just me and Sarah working on the project, and then a project architect here and there building it. We designed it, obviously. And when we finished the project, Sarah says to me, she goes, "Oh, I'm so glad that problem is over. I can't wait for the next one. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the
Yeah.
next one." I think it's a mindset, really, is what it boils down to. It's
It
just a
is.
difference in
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah. It's a creative mindset, which, creativity is often born out of struggles and challenges. You think about artists, they live
Yeah.
challenged lives and they create beautiful art. We don't need to get to that level where, things can go horribly wrong with some artists and musicians as well, part of the creative world. Um,
That's a perfect example. I say that all the time to my children because they're really into music now. They're like teenagers and
yeah.
young 20-year-olds, and they're really nostalgic about 90s music. And they
Oh,
go,
yeah.
"I listened to the first 2 albums," and then they go, "Why does the 3rd one suck?" And I go, "It's because they lost the struggle." Like, the first 2 of whatever artist it was, like Eminem's a good example. Gosh,
Yeah.
those first 2 albums were just fire because it was like a guy that grew up in a trailer park and all these struggles, and he's angry and he's expressing himself. You name any other artist like that. To keep the longevity of it is real
Yeah.
difficult, it seems, for artists. Same thing for, like, fine artists, any creative individual. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, some of the best things are
Yeah.
born out of, like, the hardest stuff. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Nothing beats making music and playing in a floor, a pub with a sticky floor, that sort of thing. So we've got
There
something
you go.
different to the stadium, different sort of world. But yeah, no, really, really interesting. This has been fantastic, fantastic conversation. So, yeah, maybe tell people how they can engage with you and what it looks like. Obviously, you're serving a certain geographic region as well, but tell people what you're up to and how they could find out more about what you're up to.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, the podcast, first and foremost, is a good place
Yeah,
to find us. We're
yeah,
veterans
cool.
in the space. We've been here since 2010. Yeah, so a long time is when since we've had our podcast. And we've done
Yeah,
over 800 episodes, million downloads, that type of thing. You go to insidethefirmpodcast.com and check us out. We have 2 shows per week. One show I have folks like yourself on, Wes, to talk business, and the other show is me and Alex just inside the firm, laying it all out there for people who
yeah.
want to start an architecture, engineering, or construction firm. And then I'll link them with anybody. Go to linkedin.com, type in LANCE, last name Cayko, Cayko. And the last place they could find us is f9productions.com to keep up with everything we're designing, building, developing. There's a newsletter there. You can sign up. Those are the ways.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love the cons. I'll put all those things in the show notes as well. But with the podcast, it's a really interesting thing. There's a couple of different mindsets about, you're sitting with your other director, Alex, and um, presumably both directors, and just sharing what's happening in the firm and so on. There's a lot of people who will be reluctant to give away their secret sauce because they think everyone's just going to copy them and compete, which is one mindset. But then there's those that know they can give away the very best, and they're going to just stay on the cutting edge in the front of what's going on in the industry. So, which is obviously your mindset, which is I really appreciate that. Have you got thoughts on that as well?
Oh, yeah. I'm of an abundance mindset, very much a Genesis
Yeah,
1:28. I be fruitful and multiply. The more I give, the more I get. And you're right. It really, like, okay, are the competitors going to listen? Are they going to copy us? They're probably going to do something similar, but they're still not us. And then
yeah,
the challenge does become, a self challenge of, just like we were talking about earlier with the tools, like, well, then now we just
Yeah.
got to stay ahead and ahead and ahead.
Yeah. And particularly in the creative field, and we covered it fairly, we covered it a lot with the human element. So there's all the tools and tech that can get technical things done, but that creative piece, that human element, I think that's where true value is, the thought leadership, and the ideas, and to be able to think outside the box. I think any business, doesn't matter what you're doing, even if you're just doing basic trade-based work, the way in which you think about it and can be the leader in your field is going to be what helps you stand the test of time in this crazy world we're living in right now. So, I mean, everyone's battling different things because that's the nature of business and the world, and things change. But those that can think through these, the changes and see the opportunities, the abundance mindset, as you say, are going to be the big winners. So I really appreciate that. It's been a fantastic conversation. Have we covered everything you wanted to cover? Because we could talk about so many things. I know that, but is there anything you really feel as though we should have covered?
Well, just
Yeah.
one more point of
Yeah.
thought for people who are resistant to the abundance mindset. It's
Yeah.
specifically with, like, giving away your trade secrets, so to speak. Is Alex, and my business partner, and I, we just got out of an interview about 3 hours ago for a house in Aspen. And houses in Aspen are very expensive, so they're big fees. They're high profile. Like, if you're an architect like us in Colorado, you want to be building and designing in Aspen. That referral came from a podcast listener who's an architect in Florida, who's been a longtime listener. And so there you go. I couldn't give you any more better proof than that. And that's just one of many stories where we have. I think it's just putting yourself out there. And
Yeah.
it makes you a better speaker. You try to reduce the uhs, ums, and all the other sort of stuff. After a while, you hate your voice for the first 100 episodes. But man, you get used to it, and you just become a powerful professional.
Yeah, yes. I'm certainly learning on the fly, getting better, hopefully getting better at it. So, no, I really appreciate you being on the show, Lance. And as I said before, we'll put the links in the show notes so anyone can find them. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Wes. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Built, Trusted, Chosen. Brought to you by Uplift 360. Visit uplift360.com.au.